I'm Martin Smith. I'm Chief Strategy Officer at Cake and Arnold KLP, which is part of the Havas Media Group. I would say have a really long, hard think and be clear on why you want to do it, because I've noticed in more of the graduates that I see now, more of them seem to want to go into planning as opposed to account handling or some of the other sides of it. And when I ask them why, they're not always able to tell me. And I get the impression that they just think it's going to be more interesting, or they'll just get, acres of time and lots of space to go noodling away on something and come up with answers, rather than kind of work in a business and get to know the business side of things. So I'd say be really clear on why you want to do it. And if your route into being a strategist is a year or 2 years or longer as an account handler, that can be really good. Don't look down your nose at that sort of thing. And the reason I say that is I went from market research straight into planning, and for the first 2 years I had no idea how an advertising agency worked, and it was a massive disadvantage. So that can be a really good route in. I think in terms of how to develop as a junior planner, as a young planner, I think stay curious, be curious about everything, ask lots of questions, find out about as much as you can, and then try to piece things together. I see quite a lot of young planners, junior planners who come up with really interesting points of view and insights and things like that, and comments, but almost feel like that's where their job begins and ends, the person in the room who comes out with a smart comment. But that's not what a planner should be. And I always say to people, take your curiosity as a starting point, and then with what you find, piece it together, build things together, and then you'll become more of a proper rounded planner. Do I recognise any particular educational background as being important? Not really. It absolutely depends on the individual. So I've met and interviewed people who've got art history degrees, who are amazing natural planners. Equally, I've met people who've done marketing degrees who aren't. So it's absolutely about the person, about the way that they think, the way that they approach things. And I guess these days, I'd be as interested in interviewing somebody who hadn't been to university but had gone off and started up a business or created something and then wanted to explore planning as well. You can it's in what they say, it's in how they talk about things, it's in how resourceful they are when they're asked to do a task and that they don't know how to approach it and how to do it. And I think it's partly that, and it's partly in their demeanour, in their body language. You can tell if they're getting excited about doing things and finding out about things. It's in all of those. Because you can't, it's like one of those, you can't sit somebody down and say, are you curious? And hope for them to say yes. But you kind of just got to see it in what they do and how they do it. I have a point of view on courses because I've been on lots of them and done that thing where you spend 3 days in a hotel room learning things that you then forget about when you go back to work. The most useful training I've ever been on, and that I always encourage people to go on, is role reversal training. And I was lucky enough a long time ago to get sent on creative role reversal, where a group of planners essentially spent 3 days as creative teams, and at the beginning of each day you would be briefed by a creative director with a sort of standard creative brief, and you'd have to come up with ideas. And it makes you realise all sorts of things, how difficult it is to write to a brief, how shit most briefs are, and most importantly, it kind of teaches you to talk about and think about ideas in a really useful way, which is it's one of those kind of untaught skills often in our business, and some people are good at it, some people aren't. So role reversal, I think, whether it's creative or to do with technology or to do with whatever it might be, I think that's the training that's most useful. What do you need to do to get promoted? Do the job above, or demonstrate that you're doing the role above. I was once told that you get promoted into the job that you're already doing, and for it to be a successful promotion, you need, for when it gets announced to the agency, everybody to say, oh, that's good, I thought he was already doing that anyway, because the opposite is it can be not nice. I think find challenges that are beyond you. You know, always try and get a little bit out of your depth on things. New business is great for that. You know, getting yourself onto a pitch team, always great for those sorts of things. But I'd say try and get out of your depth, and often you'll be surprised what you can do. Who do I most admire and why? I worked with Jim Carroll at BBH, and he was one of those people who, in a very understated way, could just get the best out of anybody, and would always find an answer to the problem that made the problem seem small and the answer seem obvious. And despite that, he'd managed to kind of join the dots or find a way through what nobody else could. And the thing that I always found interesting about him is you would go in to speak to him and he'd be extraordinarily patient and listen very diligently and write down, you know, copious notes. And then it felt like what he was doing, in answer to your kind of conundrum that you'd gone in there with, is pretty much repeating back to you what you just said to him, but in a way that made it feel like there was the answer. And I would love to be able to do that. I'm sure it's a fine art. But yeah, Jim was great.
Source LF are London's leading creative communications and media recruitment agency. Be sure to like our video and subscribe to this channel. Take the moment to watch another of our videos on screen now.